So congratulations my friends for successfully installing Laravel. Now let's just look at some basic things you need to understand about using Composer. Now we have a file here called composer.json. Now if I should open this file, this will actually keep track of all the packages that I'm using, even in my development and the required package. So, for example, if I'm working with someone remotely, maybe the person is in a different location and we're working with Git. So, whenever I install a package and the person that I'm working with just need this composer.json file to know the packages which I've installed for the project, and it can also run composer install, and that we also install all those packages on a system. Now the composer.json file contains information about the project you're working on. For example, it gives you have to declare the name of the project, the type, the description, and the rest of it. So you can decide to change all this. So I can decide to give it a name of my first project, and it's a project. And right here we can give it a description. This is a description about my first project on Laravel. So you can see all this. You can actually give it a keyword to the license for when you're deploying on Git. You can put a license there, and those are the things you need to know for now. And package.json file also works the same way, but we're going to go over there in later videos, in coming videos. So just know this about composer.json, and that's all we need to do. And let's just start our server. So if you remember in the last video, I started the server here. So I'm just going to close this right here. And since I'm using Virtual Studio Code, it has a terminal of its own. So I can just click new terminal, and I can go over and say PHP artisan serve, and this will start our server here. So we can just click on it. So you can see how to start your server. Now one thing we need to notice too again is the env file.env file, and this is where you configure your project. For example, if you're using a third-party package, you need to add them here. You can decide to add them here, and you can decide not to. But this is where you set your username in case you're connecting with a database. You can tell it the type of connection it is, the database, the username, and password. We're still going to go over all this in a bit, but for now, just know that when you're developing, you need to set your app debug to true and your env to local. And if you're setting it, if you're done developing and you want to push it online, you have to set this to production and this to false. And the reason why you have to set your debug to false is because you don't want to show your error to your users. You want to show like an error page, like a 500 error or a 404 error, depending on the type of error it is. So this will be set to false if you're pushing to a live server, and this will be set to production. So let's just close that and actually see where this page is coming from. Now, in Laravel, one thing you need to know is you need to know three basic things. Let's just say four basic things. Number one is the view. Let me just create something here. Number one thing you need to know in Laravel is the view. So let's say views. Number two is the routing. Number three is the controller. And number four is the model. Now, these four things are the basic things you need to know to actually get started creating nice Laravel project. But for this video, I'm going to talk about the routing and view. Now, if you check this, now this is like the base URL for this project. Now, this 127.0.0.1 actually means the same thing as local host. So you can go over and do it like this. You're still getting the same thing. And this is like the base URL. Now in your URL, you can have something slash about. Now we don't have the page here, but you have this URL. Now you need to get this, create this URL to actually have a page attached to this URL. And that's how Laravel works. Now, if you should go over to your route, now check your route folder. That's where your route actually is, and open your web.php file. Now this is where your route is, and you can see that this forward slash means the base URL, and in this URL you are returning a view. For example, if I decide to return a string and I say okay, and right here in my browser I decide to refresh, let's just go over to the base URL. I decide to refresh. You can see that okay. Now I'm returning a string instead of a view. You can return anything. You can return an array, you can return an object, you can return a JSON. It all depends on what you actually want to return at a particular time. So the next thing, that's just one thing you need to know. And these your views are actually your pages, the pages that you've actually created. Now, your views are stored in your resource folder, and right here you can see views, and this is the welcome page. This is the page that shows, this is the page that was displayed initially. Now if I should Control Z this, and you can see the view, and I'm returning this, the welcome page is being returned. Now this has to correspond with the name here, with the name of the file without the blade.php. Now Laravel use something for their templating, which is blade template. You can go over to the internet and read more on blade template, but that's not the scope. You can go over to the internet and read more about blade template, but for this we but let's just create another file right here, and we can call this home.blade.php. Remember, we can just write home.php. It has to be home.blade.php. Now we've actually misspelled this, and let's just say home.blade.php. And right here I want to say my first page. Hopefully this makes sense to you, and you can come over to your web now and actually change this. So this will be home. Remember, it has to correspond with the name without the blade.php. Now if I should go over here and refresh, and you can see this is my first page. So hopefully this makes sense to you. And if you should come over here and create another view file and call this about.blade.php, and right here you can say this is the about page, and let's just close this. And in our web, let's just create another route. Now we're using a get request. Now there are types of requests that we can use. We can use a get request, a post request, a an update request, which is a put request, and we can use a delete request. And throughout this video, we're going to be looking the types of routes you can use. You can group a route, you can use a redirect route, and the rest of it. So for now, we're just going to do a get request, and this will be get because we're writing a get request. And right here, we just need to specify the route that we want to do, which is the about. And right here, we can do function. This will be a callback function. And right here, we can now return something. Okay, so we can return view, and we can say about. So hopefully this makes sense to you. Now when we go over to that about, and you can see this is the about page. And now we have two pages, and we have the first page, and we also have the about page. So this is like the basic of what you need to know in your for now. You can now go over to like developing these pages and the rest. So I'll see you in next video where I'm actually going to explain the project structures, what's actually happening, because you're actually seeing a lot of folders and you're actually worried that you need to go over all this folder. You don't need to go over all them. So just going to show you in next video how these folders are being read, how relevant they are, and how you can actually work with these folders, and how you can actually build more complex applications with Laravel. So I'll see you in next video.